think the people in horror movies are just downright stupid? Like, really, if I'm being chased by a masked murderer, I'm not running to some small, closed-off space. No, I'm headed for a large room with multiple exit points, so no matter which door they decide to bust down with the machete, I have another good one right there. And windows. They always forget about windows. I may not be able to break through a wall, but I can break through a window. Now, I know you all agree with my carefully thought out plan and would personally like to see me put to the test, so you don't have to listen to the rest of my speech. But the scary thing is, you have no choice. Welcome to How to Get Away from Murderers by Bailey Raymond. Today we'll be going over 3 basic steps. First, we'll look at the background of the location and see how fear is cultivated and controlled in your brain. Next, we'll look at the specter/killer that's in front of you today, which is the societal expectations that cause fear in everyday life. And finally, we'll plan our escape route. Courage comes at a cost. It's much too expensive for most people, especially those horror movie characters, the little ones. When planning your trip to Springwood, Ohio, make sure not to stay on Elm Street, or else you might be plagued by murderous nightmares. And if you tell anyone about these nightmares that cause fear every single night, you'll be called mental. Now, nightmares in horror movies are great ways to incite fear, but it can also be things such as steep steps, honors geometry tests, or even speech tournaments. Whatever your fear may be, your brain recognizes it based on past experiences. Your prefrontal cortex and hippocampus will perceive the threat by relating it to past memories. Then the amygdala will activate the motor functions that are responsible for the fight or flight response, which includes increasing the heart rate and breathing rate, pumping blood to all of the muscles, and giving the bloodstream a healthy dose of adrenaline. While the following factors, context, social learning, and concentration, have a part in how we experience fear, a common theme is a sense of control, says Assistant Professor of Psychology at Wayne State University, Linda Sapp. Your brain will block out all else in the spectrum of focus so that you can target the threat at large. While talking all about these horror movies, I should probably mention that your response to watching one is a lot different than your response to living in one. Your prefrontal cortex and hippocampus will prevent the full-fledged response from occurring when watching a horror movie, which makes scaring people a lot less fun. Now that we've learned how fear is controlled in your brain, let's ask the question, are we born with innate fears as well as those we learn? We've discovered that all living beings have developed 2 innate fears through the process of evolution. A 1960 study by psychologists Eleanor Gibson and Richard Wall proved this to be true. They set up a visual cliff, which is a glass plane for small children and animals to cross, but many would not, proving that once depth perception has been developed, so does a fear of falling. And Steve Norholm, a translational neuroscientist at Emory University, discovered that animals and humans alike have an acoustic startle response, meaning that if you hear a really loud noise or a balloon pop, then you will automatically duck. I would start screaming it as an example, but I need to preserve your ears for the rest of my speech. Now, we've seen how fear is used and controlled in your brain. We'll now discover how fear is used to control you. Have you ever seen Saw? No, not Seesaw, the movie Saw, with a guy in a creepy white pig mask. I want to play a game, hee. Well, just as he used fear to manipulate his subjects into doing things such as cutting off their own feet, we've constantly been manipulated by fear in our lives in a much less gruesome way. When growing up, our experiences taught us what to fear, as well as stories of the experiences of others. The true grim fairy tales are much scarier than some horror movies. The Boy Who Cried Wolf taught us that lying could have dire consequences, such as being eaten by a wolf. Hansel and Gretel taught that disrespecting your parents and being greedy could end with you getting eaten by a witch. And the Three Little Pigs taught that skimping through life could end with you getting eaten by another big bad wolf. Getting eaten was a basic form of fear in the minds of most children. We use stories of others' faults and our own to teach children morals, because bribery doesn't always work. These things shaped you to be the person you are today. And this is the way fear was positively used to influence you. The effects of fear may not be so positive in your life today. We spend our lives trying to stay in the indistinct borderlines that society has granted us. Conformity is being liked by everyone but ourselves, says Rita Brown, an author of murder mystery novels. We spend our time trying to have others like us. We've learned to be subservient to our elders and have those who we view as greater than us try to agree and appreciate us, which has created a silent, subservient personality in way too many people. This need to be surrounded by a council of peers overrides the morals and our want to speak out. We've been taught that ostracism is the result of an opposing opinion, which shouldn't be true. Now that we've seen this ugly thing face to face, let's plan our escape route. After weeks of manipulating us from behind the shadows, Pennywise has shown his big, ugly face. And we laughed in the face of fear, or peed ourselves. Everyone has different responses. But now that we've seen him, we will escape by overcoming this fear. When overcoming fear, we must ask ourselves that something is worth more than it. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the judgment that something is worth more than it, says James Hollingworth, a man who worked despite his fear by using a pseudonym. He knew that his work and his ideas needed to be heard despite possible criticism. We have to judge that there is something worth more than fear. So ask yourself, do you value a few seconds of your life more than a lifelong impact on someone else? Is it worth correcting the Starbucks barista when they get your order wrong? Will one decision be worse than the burden of regret for the years after? Moments of your life can change others so much, and we have to identify that other things are worth more than us. And if we're able to identify and choose priorities in our life, you will release your anxiety, leading to a healthier mindset. I had a judge tell me that anxiety isn't the same as fear, but they're pretty much related. I mean, my anxiety, which I have through personal experience, is everyday little fears. Did I say that word wrong? Did she think my comment was rude? Am I ready for this test? I mean, yeah, they're little stressors, but if I learn to prioritize, which I'm working on, then I can reduce my anxiety, and it should do the same for you. Public speakers have learned to excel at these methods. We who have a means and a voice must use both for those who have neither, says a historian, unnamed. It is our job to speak out for those who can't. We must prove that our message is worth more than anyone's criticism or anything, because we have the opportunity to do greater than those who don't. So, the next time you're told to change your identity and the path that you're on, choose your happiness. And when you're told to change your style and who you are, prioritize your identity. And finally, when told to play a game by a guy in a creepy white pig mask, prioritize your sanity. Now, we don't want to be the stupid horror movie characters that get killed in the first scene. Be the smart one that gets killed in the last 5 minutes. Your efforts to override your fear may not always have positive consequences, but sometimes the backlash is too strong. So go ahead and scare them with your willpower. And when going to a deserted house, first check the background. If need to, Google it. Then, if you've already seen that specter face to face, introduce yourself And finally, if they've rejected your offer for friendship and a hug, politely ask to be excused, even though your amygdala is flashing red lights and everything you've ever learned is telling you to run. Congratulate yourself, because you are alive. Some people are so ungrateful to be alive, but not you, not anymore.